down here. I know they do not want to come sit up here, but I thought it would be fun as we go through these slides. You'll get to watch their facial reactions as well. And so if the team could come on down. I wish there was a way for us to get, if you could sit right down here, yeah. Yeah, because the other thing I want to do too, as we go through these slides, I want to give you guys, just so you guys know, I want to give you guys the opportunity. If you have a funny story or something you want to interject, just grab my attention and we'll hand you the microphone, okay? But there on the screen, you can see our team. So left to right, we have Mr. John Lehman, Miss Lillian. There in the back row, you see Pastor Greg Mann, and you'll see his wife Wendy in some of the pictures. They're obviously serving there in Guyana. There's Pastor Dwayne, Ryan, Nikki, and then that girl in the yellow there, her name is Aliyah. She has known Pastor Greg and Miss Wendy since she was about 7. She's 16 now, and she actually had the opportunity to come with us from Georgetown to the jungle and stay with us for the week, and she served with us. Well, one of the cool things was during that week, she put her trust in Jesus, and she got baptized, so you'll get to see some of that. But that's Aliyah. I said Nikki's there in the back. There's Abby Nayucott, Kelsey Watt, Kyle Lehman, Mackenzie Lehman, Holly, Shawnee, myself, and then Abby Medlin. And so that was our team. And then I'm going to try to give you guys an overview. I think I have 120 slides. We'll see how long it takes me to get through those. But this is just a snapshot, really, of our week. We had lots of people taking pictures. I think just myself, I took close to 400 pictures. I know Miss Holly took probably over 1,000. And then we tried to put all of our pictures together in a shared album to put this slideshow together. But let me just walk you through. So Friday morning, I think this was July 19th, we came here very early to the church. I think all of our travel days started at 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning. So this is one of those 2 in the morning kind of days. And we took this van from the church all the way to Tampa and flew from Tampa to Miami, had a short layover in Miami, then flew from Miami to Georgetown, Guyana. When we were flying into Georgetown, my first initial reaction was because of how much of Guyana is forest. I think it's 80% jungle and forest. It looks like broccoli to me from the top there. And so anyway, we landed there in the international airport there in Georgetown. And Pastor Greg in yellow picked us up, and we had a driver take us in this shuttle bus from the airport to our hotel for the night. And so there we are driving from Georgetown a little bit farther out to the outskirts of Georgetown. And we stayed at this nice hotel for the first night. And there we are in the lobby getting checked in. It was very interesting not having cell coverage because, of course, Greg met us there. And once he kind of got us situated, he left. Well, we're like hoping that we have Wi-Fi, so in case there's a problem, we can reach out to him in case we don't get our rooms. But it all worked out. When we got our rooms, we were pleasantly surprised to see the showers were in the middle of the room. As you can see, they're very see-through. So that was an interesting situation, but we made that work, and most of us just faced the wall while our neighbor was taking their shower. There in the basement, or there on the property, we had dinner together. We actually had a gift shop that we were able to exchange our U.S. currency to Guyanese. And the fun thing was it was a 1 to 200 ratio. So 1 U.S. dollar is 200 Guyanese dollars. So you know, say, hey, I'm spending $2,500, and it'd be like just a few bucks. But the next day, we got up early again and went to another airport, an airstrip. And there we are kind of getting checked in. And everything had to be weighed. Our luggage had to be weighed. We had to be weighed. And all of our luggage had to be checked there in that back corner and gone through and whatnot. And then once we went through our little security checkpoint, there we are hanging out in the lounge waiting for our flights. So we ended up taking 2 smaller planes out. So there were 2 groups. Our first, this is actually the second group. This was the plane I was on. There we are. You can see Ryan's reaction. There's a lot of pictures like this of Ryan. He was our jokester during the week. I don't have all of them in the slideshow, but there's a few. There's the second group. This was cool. So Miss Wendy was in the plane with us, and she was in front of me in the very back corner there. Let me see if I can circle this. But right over here, right over there was where the church property was. If you zoom in really close on this picture, you can see the whole thing. But of course, we landed a little farther up the river at the airport there. This is in Mabaruma. And so we landed, and they got all of our luggage out. And there's the airport there. So welcome to Mabaruma. So once we got all of our stuff and all of our people, we loaded up in Pastor Greg's pickup truck, most of the luggage. Some of us loaded up in that van there on the far right, and then the rest of us piled in with another local pastor, Pastor Norbert. And so there we are getting all loaded up. And so we went down just a little bit to the town there, and here was where we were waiting for the church bus, the church boat, not the church bus, church boat to come and pick us up. And one of the sad things there was just in the background, just seeing some kids just hanging out, just having lots of practical needs for food and things like that, but just hanging out there. And so there's Pastor Romel, another local pastor, bringing the church boat around to pick us up. And so there we are on our way, just a short little ways down the river to where we stayed. And so there's our first sighting of Riverside Community Baptist Church, where we would stay for the week. And getting acclimated to our new surroundings there. So that is the property that we stayed at all week while we were there. And at the very, very top of the building there was where the sanctuary was, kind of like our sanctuary. It had the sanctuary on the one side, and then in the back rooms, where we have storage rooms, were bunk rooms on the back side of there. On the bottom floor, there was the kitchen, some more bunk rooms for the girls. The boys stayed upstairs, girls stayed downstairs. Bunk rooms, and then in that front room that you see that door on the far right side of the building, that was the one air conditioning room where we had our meals and our craft time during BBS, and also where we had all of our group devos and hangout time. And then in another room, there was just a storage room with a refrigerator and some other ministry supplies. We all got very comfortable taking outdoor showers and using the one outhouse on the property. The previous group that had come just before us from another church here in Florida and was serving in another village than we did, had left us some additional craft supplies. If you look really closely, you might be able to see a sign that we made up on the door that had red felt on the one side that said stop, and green felt on the other side that said go. So if you had the sign on stop, don't come in because somebody was in there. Try to do your best not to walk in on somebody in the shower because they had locks, but the locks didn't work. And there was a nice little crack right down the side of the door. So anyways, this is where the guys stayed in the room upstairs. And girls downstairs. You can see the kitchen in the background there. On that first Saturday after we had gotten in, so we flew out of the country on Friday, spent the night in Georgetown Friday night, flew out of Georgetown Saturday morning, and arrived here Saturday afternoon. So some of us went out with Miss Wendy and Pastor Greg to do some shopping for the week. So rather than going to one store like Walmart and getting all the things you need for the week, we would go to this store and see if they had vegetables, and go to this store to see if they had something for the propane tank, and this store to see if they had some brooms, and this store to see if they had some chicken and eggs and whatnot. And so we also got very comfortable riding in the back of Pastor Greg's pickup truck. You didn't know it, but you can fit about 13 people in a pickup truck if you want to. And so that was one of the times we only had a few of us in the back of the truck. But there we are shopping around, getting some things there at the market. We had to make about 45 eggs each morning to feed everybody. And so there's some of our group cooking. Miss Lillian's making some pancakes. I think Pastor Dwayne's supervising or something. Oh, one of the other fun thing was for those of us who drink coffee, we all took our instant coffee with us, and so a lot of mornings we would just whoever was there first would, whether it was me or John, heating up just a thing of boiling water on the stove, and then using a ladle to scoop out our water and pour in our instant coffee. So there we are enjoying some breakfast. Some days we had some eggs, potatoes, bacon bits. Some days we had pancakes and chicken nuggets. There we are enjoying breakfast. I think this is Sunday morning. So one of the neat things about Guyana is they are just very traditional in their culture. So even during the week, the men were wearing pants and a lot of the women were wearing skirts. But especially on Sunday mornings, they all dressed up for church. And so there's Pastor Greg giving an announcement about Vacation Bible School for the week. And he taught out of the book of Nehemiah that morning. And then Pastor Dwayne and Mr. John and Shawnee and Kelsey and others all helped lead music for some parts of the service. And of course, because of where we were on the river, that's how everybody got to church. Some people traveled from 4 hours away via boat one way, and then would travel 4 hours back. But that's just how hungry they are for the good news. And then we woke up Monday morning. From Monday through Friday, we had Vacation Bible School there at Riverside Community Church. It was a blessing to have about 80 kids or 80 local people on average, and then plus our team. So we had close to 100 people for VBS every single day. Most of these kids wouldn't have time to get breakfast before they got on the boat and came to VBS in the morning. So right after we were done with our breakfast, a team would make some peanut butter slices and have those all ready for the kids when they came up first thing. There's us hanging out and enjoying our time in our shorts as long as we could before we had to put on our pants to do some ministry because it was hot. And then we started VBS. Pastor Dwayne and I tag team throughout the week. He would teach one lesson, I would teach the other, all throughout the week on the full armor of God. And then one of the cool things was it didn't have to be as structured as you might have to be here for ministry in the States. And so every day for rotation, we would just go around the room and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if you were in 1, you were in music. If you were in 2, you were in games. And if you were 3, you were in crafts. And so that's how we did the groups all week long. So there's the music rotation. Mr. John and the girls headed that up. And then, like I said, this is one of the local pastors, Pastor Romel. He was helping lead us in songs. They had scripture memory songs, which is good. It's a good way to learn scripture. One of the unique things there, too, was they used the King James Version for scripture memory because Guyana used to be a former British colony, and so some of those words just make more sense to them. Also, Pastor Greg was telling us, whereas here in the States, we might know like 3 or 4 synonyms for words, they are looking for just one key word that they know, and if you can get that word, they know what you're talking about. But, you know, we might use a bunch of other synonyms to describe what we're talking about, and they just need that one key word. So this is one of the songs that he led us in, and we'll actually sing this for you guys during the main service. Here's another time of music. Getting to watch the kids get into the music was really special. Had a games rotation that Nikki and Ryan and Kyle headed up. There's our crafts team. Headed up by Miss Holly and Miss Lillian, Abby and Mackenzie. Very thankful for these people. If you can see down under there, that was where we had a couple of people doing our laundry every day. So they did our laundry, I think, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so that helped us to be able to pack lightly and just rewear our clothes after they were washed. Just about every day, though, after they were hung up, normally like right in the middle of VBS, it would start to rain. And so like 3 or 4 of us have to run out and grab everybody's underwear, grab everybody's T-shirts and pants and all those things, and put them away somewhere until we could hang them back out to dry. Like I said, it did rain a lot. So then after VBS was over and the kids all left from there, back on the boats, we would hang out just for a little bit, eat some snacks, and then we would get on the road and go to another village about half an hour away via these dirt roads, and very bumpy, but good memories now. And so we would go to this other village to be able to minister. And there we are all piled in. You didn't know it, but you can fit 17 people in a 15-seater.
Every single time.
Yeah, you should both know by now. You've known it for years.
When I'm dead and gone, just say, you know, there was this pastor.
One of the other things we had to do, because we were going to this other village, was take some toilet paper with us, because their outhouse most likely would not have toilet paper in it. So if you wanted some, you had to bring some with you in a baggie so it stayed waterproof. But this was the other village church where we would serve. And this was a little bit more informal. We would just set up a volleyball net and play volleyball, or take down the net and play soccer, aka football, down there. And with the younger kids, we'd do some other games. But the kids really, really love soccer and volleyball there. Also played some sharks and minnows. Hopscotch and Simon Says and Duck Duck Goose. And then after we'd play for a while, we'd come upstairs into that church and have time of worship and then testimonies. So throughout those 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, when we would do this in the afternoon, asked different people on the team to share their testimony. Some did it willingly because they were afraid to be asked. Some didn't want to be asked, but I asked them anyway. But they were all kind enough to share their testimony. And then circling back to VBS, this was on the last day on Friday. Of course, we were intentional to share the gospel every single day during VBS, but on the last day, Pastor Greg specifically gave the gospel one last time and actually invited kids forward. We had tried to do that earlier on in the week, and it was just awkward because they feel embarrassed, they feel ashamed if they come up. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to get a response publicly like that. But Pastor Greg did ask for a response, and over 40 kids came forward to put their faith in Jesus. And so what they did is Pastor Dwayne took half the group, and Pastor Romel took the other half of the group. And while they were just continuing to reinforce what was shared and go over the gospel one more time, we were praying there for them. And so what we did afterwards was Pastor Greg had us take down the names of all of the children. That's how we knew there was 40 of them. And so that will allow them to be able to do follow-up. As they see these kids come to church on Sundays, they'll have those opportunities to follow up in the future about the decisions that they made. I told you a little bit about Aliyah. Now it's going to stop working. Okay, I can sit over here and control that. So there's Pastor Greg baptizing Aliyah. So this was on Thursday afternoon. I told you in the afternoons on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we went to this village. But then Thursday and Friday, we didn't go anywhere specifically, but we ended up going to this swimming hole. Fun fact about this river, it's pretty far away, but if you were to float down this river, it would take you all the way back to the church that we were serving at. But there, we got to watch Aliyah get baptized. And then we also had some fun jumping off the bridge there. So there's Abby and John. There's Pastor Dwayne and Pastor Greg. Here we are all hanging out. And then in the evenings, we would spend some time after dinner doing a Devo and just kind of going over the day. And then on this particular day, we were singing some songs in worship. And then the last day on Friday of VBS was a special day because, of course, these kids were coming by boat and then leaving by boat. But we had the opportunity on the last day to get to go with them and see what their life is like outside of church. And so we got to ride in the boat with them while their boat driver would take them back. And so we were singing songs with them and having a good time on that last day. But as you can see there on the right, I wish I had put another video in of this, but that's pretty much what a lot of the stops look like. They would get off on a small dock or a telephone pole and walk home from there, and that's what their home life was like. I think I do have a video here. This is of a family that would get off onto a smaller boat and then travel in a canal up a little bit. Bye, guys. This lady had a larger family, so she had to come back for a second trip of kids. And then on Friday night, the last night we were there, we got to go to Pastor Romel's church in another village. This particular village that we went to was a pretty poor village, as you'll get to see a little bit in a minute. But this is just a picture of what we did all week. We would all load up in Pastor Greg's pickup truck and leave the church and come up to this part of the road and all hop out and then wait for another van to split up the group a little bit to take the longer drive to where we were going. And so there we are all waiting for the van to pick us up so we could travel. So this was the church that we went to. I think this was, what was the name of this village? Kumwada. Some of these houses, the walls didn't go all the way up. They have a roof and Pastor Greg got the opportunity to preach the word that night. There behind that curtain is where the Sunday school class meets. This is Pastor Romel and his family leading us in a song. We had a very lively time of worship, though. This gentleman, felt like we were at a karaoke place. So he was banging on the keyboard and also had a drum loop going while Pastor Dwayne and John were playing on guitar, and he was leading worship. This is Saturday morning, whatever day of the month that was that we were leaving. I think that was July 27th. And so we were loading up with Pastor Romel there to backtrack the way we had come into the country. So he took us there to the local town. And from there we loaded up and went on to the little airport. Took 2 more planes again. And flew back into Georgetown during the afternoon after we got checked in here at our hotel. We went and did some sightseeing and some souvenir shopping. While we were there in Georgetown in the capital, we went to one of the malls there. And I went to one of Miss Wendy's there, one of her favorite burger places. You can see some of the prices there. Most of us got the burger combo for $2,500. You'll have to ask Miss Holly about this, but we also saw while we were there in the mall, we saw Miss Universe, Guyana. So she was there and hung out with Holly and took some pictures. There's one of the supermarkets in there. And then out on the street at some of the souvenir vendors, this is something one of our own, Mr. Dennis Long, can tell you a little bit more about, but these are melons called calabash. And after they carve out the fruit, this gentleman makes lots of nice designs on the outside of those. And I believe there in the back is one of the oldest wooden churches in the world. Largest wooden structure. And then on Sunday morning, we flew out back to Miami, went through customs, and that was our trip. So, at this particular point, I'm going to turn it over to our team to share testimonies. Miss Holly, I think we had you up first, so would you like to share with our church?
Okay, I had to write it down because I don't like speaking in front of people, so I have to look at it. This mission trip helped reiterate 2 major things for me. The first, that God's will is sometimes not mine, but I need to trust him wholeheartedly, and that he provides in every situation. So as soon as I learned of this mission trip, I knew that I wanted to go, and I wanted Abby to go. Getting her passport was a major hurdle for us, and I prayed a lot that things would go through. My mind determined that it would be God's will, of course, for Abby to go with us. Why wouldn't it be? The week before our trip, still no passport, and I started to wonder if in fact it was God's will for her to go, or is it just mine? After a lot of prayer and just releasing my desires and my will, I was honest with God and just I let it go. I would be content with whatever his will would be. I was more at peace. Abby got her passport 2 days before we left. It was a lot of stress still. I'm glad she was able to come and experience this trip. The second important thing that God showed me was he provides, and it came about during our craft time during VBS there. Nathan had asked me to put together a list of things, of crafts and supplies, and I didn't aim high on the crafts, knowing that we had to bring everything with us. and I was worried about getting my clothes and stuff down there, and a toilet seat too. Greg and Wendy had told us to expect about 50 kids, maybe 60. So I planned for that, and when we got down there, our first day, we had almost 80 kids there, and I wasn't worried the first day. I knew we had enough supplies and everything, but I knew the fourth day, our craft was the shield of faith, and I knew we had 49 of those already, and we didn't have any more. So the third night, me and Lillian and Kinsey were looking through our extra supplies and trying to find extra scraps that we can cut extra shields out. And thankfully, the group before us had brought a lot of supplies, and we used the stuff that they had. I prayed to myself, just thinking, Lord, please fishes and loaves these, because we had more than we'd had the previous 3 days. Like, we had 80 that first day, just continually went up with participants that were doing crafts with us. I said it out loud to the girls too, and I was just like, Lord, fishes and loaves. And we had 3 groups come in and everything, and at the end we had 3 shields left over. So it was just like, praise the Lord, thank you. So it was just a good reminder that, he's gonna provide, and it's not on me. Just this trip was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really glad that I was able to go. So, do you want to pass it to Abby, or do you want to give it to somebody else?
On our trip to Guyana, I learned how different their country was from ours. To get anywhere there, they take boats. They travel a long distance to get to church in VBS, where we don't have to travel long distances to get to church. The kids loved being with us and didn't want to leave us each day. And I just love seeing the kids and helping with the songs. I had a good time there, and I would like to go back.
John, would you mind sharing next? Well, you're next on the list, and then they're next.
Well, it was a really great experience for me. I led the music, and we did some really silly things, right, with jumping around and doing hand motions, and it's just definitely out of my element. I felt ridiculous at times, right? But and then I saw these kids, out there as if I were trying to teach you guys hand motions. I imagine most of you would just sit there and stare at me rather than get involved, right? And so that was kind of what was happening with these kids a lot. And I was kind of like, I think these kids are just like the kids back here in the U.S. where they are embarrassed, and they feel like they don't want people to judge them. And but Greg and Wendy just kept encouraging us and saying, no, I think that they're just very shy, and they don't have a lot of interaction and with things like this. And so it was very encouraging to continue to see them grow in their willingness to participate in the hand motions and the songs, and just you'd see the smiles on their faces. A lot of times they would just sit there really shy and just kind of do this, but then eventually they would start to really get into it, and they would get involved. And I think that was a blessing, just to see that maybe. We also had learned that a lot of these kids maybe had some sort of abuse at home, maybe whether it was physical or emotional, or that there was just kind of a place for children and women maybe. A lot of the women wouldn't shake your hands and things like that, or look you in the eye, and so there's some things like that there. But it was a joy to be able to bring out some of the life in the kids. And one of the things in particular that I remember is when we went to the bridge where Leah got baptized, and we were all jumping off, and there was one lady there, a girl who was visiting from Georgetown, and she was visiting her aunt or something like that, or her grandmother that lived in the village there. And they were just wading in the water, and she saw us jumping, and I think Pastor Dwayne or Greg encouraged her. She's like, come on, you can jump too. And she's like, no, I can't even swim. And They were like, well, we don't care, just jump. And, no, but that's pretty much what. And so they offered to catch her and everything. And so and she ended up jumping like 2 or 3 times. And then when she left, she was like, I'm gonna miss you guys. And it's like we had only known her for an hour or less, But that was kind of like the same message that we got from a lot of these kids, is that they were gonna miss us, right? And we had only been there for just 5 days to them. And so I think what I learned from that is that there's just a lot of hunger there for like some diversities, from something different, a different kind of life and a different kind of enjoyment of life. And I think that there's a hunger for the gospel, And so just people who are willing to shine light into these villages, I think, is a breath of fresh air for them. And I think that's pretty much what I learned, is that it's almost easier to go to places like that where people are hungry than it is to walk back to my back door neighbor and tell him about Jesus, And so I think that we're obviously called to do both, but I think that the hunger from the kids was a refreshing aspect that I took, and just when you think about it and try to apply it to a broader scale, how common that probably is throughout the entire world. This was one small country, one small part of a country, but I'm convicted that there's so much that we could be doing, and it just helps us to think about how we're using our time that God has blessed us with. So that's mine.
Who else would like to share? Kyle. Okay, Kyle, here you go, bud. I asked him to do this on Wednesday, so he's looking.
I just thought it was super cool how like all the kids would like just warm up to you super fast. Like by the second or third day, they'd have like full-on conversations with you, even though the first day they're like super shy. And then also, I think God just taught me how to be super grateful with all the things that I have back here at home, because I really took things for granted when we were in Guyana, like AC, the bathroom, the shower. But it was just really fun, and I was glad that I was able to get this experience to go.
Anybody else like to share?
Similar to Kyle, I think one of the biggest things I learned was contentment and being satisfied with everything that I have here. Because similar to him, here in the States, we take a lot of things for granted, like air conditioning and paved roads even. And I think in addition from the kids learning from us, I think I learned a lot from the kids as well. Because, still like us, like we would be like sweating bullets and everything. And over here, when we have like almost all the buildings here have AC, over there we only had one room that had AC. And they would be sweating too, and like you can see the drops of sweat on their foreheads and everything, but they would not complain about being hot or anything. They just took it. And pretty much for us, we would complain that it's hot too, but eventually we just learned to take the heat too, because you can't escape it. But it was just really cool, because like we were in games, and similar to what my dad said, they were shy at the beginning, and when we were explaining games to them and everything, they wouldn't really like kind of jump up to like play, because like we would have games that like they would have to take turns and everything, so we would kind of have to like push and encourage them to participate. By like the end of the week, they'd be like, oh, I want to go, or like, oh, I want to play this game, and they'd be like really excited. And it was just cool to see how involved they would get as they got more comfortable with you, and how much like they like to talk to you, even though I feel like they do understand English more than they can speak it, because when they would ask me stuff, I'd have to ask them to like repeat it like 3 or 4 times. But I think it was just really cool and encouraging to just be able to go to a different culture and just see how much they love God and how much they, hunger for the gospel and how much they want to just, go out of the comfort zone and just spend time with people who also love God. And like Pastor Nathan was saying, that other village that we went to on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they would be outside, playing football and stuff like that. And at first they were like, oh, who are these people? Like, why are these random outsiders here? But, eventually as we started playing games with them, they would warm up to us. And by Wednesday when we were leaving, they're like giving us hugs and everything. And they were like, oh, we don't want you guys to go. Like, this was so much fun. But obviously we didn't want to leave either, but because we enjoyed our time with them. But it was just cool to see how much they, loved hanging out with us and how much God can do in just a short amount of time. So.
Anybody else?
This was my first mission trip, well, my whole family's, and something that really, like, I took with from this trip was growing up, my mom always said to us, you guys don't realize how lucky you have it, thinking about the kids in Africa or just in third world countries. Like, this is such a first world problem. And it was so cool to go on this mission trip and to actually see that. Like, she told me that all growing up, but then seeing that, and it's like, yeah, that's very true. And seeing the different lifestyle and just what kind of routine they have. It's like a whole different world over there. But it was so interesting to learn about, and one of the best experiences I've ever had. Right when we came back, I immediately got back to work, and everyone was like, oh, how was the trip? And I was like, I didn't want to leave. That was amazing. It was the best thing I've ever done. And then maybe other than the heat, bathroom situation, I just fell in love so much with the people there and the kids. And I just had a lot of experiences there that I don't think I ever would have done here, like sharing my testimony or just reaching out to people and me being the one to talk to them rather than them coming up to me asking questions, because that's the whole reason we were there, was to make connections with them. And like everyone here said, they were all shy in the beginning, so we had to learn to connect with them and how we can get them to come out of their shell. But I was part of crafts, and there was a huge, from the first day that we did crafts to the last day, crazy shift with how involved the people were and how excited they were. First day, they kind of all shuffled into the room, shy, or Miss Holly would recap the message and then tell them what craft we're doing, and we'd give them their supplies, and they're just standing there not knowing what to do. They're like, okay. So the first day, we each had to go to each one of them and show them how to do it, because they didn't want to impose, I guess. But then by the last day, they all come in smiling, excited, and we're like, you guys ready for the craft? They're like, yes. And it was just so heartwarming. I just loved seeing that. And yeah, the last days were hard to say bye to them, and I miss them, but it was the greatest thing I've ever done.
Kelsey, Miss Lillian? No pressure. Pastor Dwayne? Okay. All right. Well, this time we'd love to open it up to you guys for some Q&A. So if you have questions, I can run a mic to you. And Pastor Dwayne, if you don't mind holding this one for the team. So if you have a question, let me know and I'll bring you the microphone.
Thank you all so much for going. I'm sort of emotional because it was so special to hear what you've told. On the children that came, you said you had 40 that said they came to know the Lord Jesus. follow-up there will be pretty strong with that pastor, correct? I mean, how do they do that? I know there was one person baptized, you said, that week you were there, but what do they have planned for follow-up on that?
Yeah, so so the church that that we were at there doing the VBS, Pastor Greg is actually the pastor there, and then he's got some others there that'll help with follow-up. Just as a reminder, too, our missionary, Greg there, has established 9 churches all throughout the interior. And so from a biblical perspective, has done it right. Has gone in there, has trained up the locals, and had them do it. And so Greg is very, very much around discipleship. So they will absolutely get all that, and really just kind of confirm with the kids too, those that made a profession of faith, kind of really where they are. And then ultimately, of course, only the Lord really knows their hearts. And then they will follow through with baptism, and then follow up through Bible school and all those other things. So great question. Yeah. So it wasn't, we just left them there. They're in good hands. So we had the joy of being part of that.
Yeah, and as far as them taking that next step of baptism, that's one of the things that they're trying to work on building is a baptismal there, right there, where you saw the boats coming in on the dock. They're trying to make a nice one because it's all muddy there and everything, so they're trying to make that plan come together, but that's a work in progress. So what other question do you have?
Not really a question, but an observation from listening to you all, how shy they were on the first day and everything, but by day 3, how much they were coming to you and excited to be with you and all that kind of stuff. Just goes to show how God's love can change hearts and lives in such a small time, and how the friendships can build because of that. And I just thank all of you for going. I'm emotional too, because I'm sitting here watching it thinking, man, that would have been awesome to do. And I've not had that chance to do a mission trip like that, but thank you all for going and being willing to do that. And we go to change lives, but it changes our own also. So thank you so much.
Just an observation, a question. I saw electricity in the sanctuary, but then you still have outhouses and outdoor showers and all that stuff. How did that work? And then also your guitars, did you take your own or did they provide them? You know, I know how much luggage you're allowed to take.
Well, so they did have electricity. It was all 120 volt. I think the government installed electricity. I don't know how long they've had it. 20 years or so, maybe, I guess. But anyways, so if you had any needs other than 120 volts, you'd have to use a generator. But they had their own guitars and their own sound system in that sanctuary. I think it was a new sound system with speakers and guitars and everything. And it actually worked out pretty well. I think we actually took some supplies down as well, a couple of wireless mics and things like that, and left them there. So, yeah, what else did you ask about? Is that it? Oh, the bathrooms, yeah. So, I mean, the plumbing was, there wasn't really plumbing. It was all recaptured rainwater, and that's what those big cisterns, those big black cisterns were for on top of the buildings. And then they had probably, I'd say 6 or 8 or 10 of those cisterns throughout the properties, and they were all interconnected with kind of balancing pipes, so that the levels would all balance out between them. But yeah, that's how you took your shower, was with rainwater. That's how you washed dishes and brushed your teeth. At least I did. I think everybody else used water, but bottled water. But that was it. There was no, and I think that Greg and Wendy probably have like a pump that they use to flush their toilet. I'm not sure where it goes, but anyways, but yeah, I think for the most part, there's outhouses, and whoever, maybe some of the more wealthy people just use pumps, but it's all rainwater. I don't think there's really plumbing until you get into Georgetown, into the city. So.
Wendy actually told me that, well, I asked her how long would it not have to rain for you to run out of water in those cisterns, and she said, we probably all of our cisterns, I think they each held 500 gallons of water, and she said it would probably, we'd be out of water if it didn't rain for 3 months. So that was sort of interesting.
Yeah, one more thing about that is that when they do have periods of drought, inevitably, once the rainwater starts coming, you'll have kids dying from drinking the water, because that's the water that they drink too, and their bodies are used to it. We wouldn't drink it, but because of, after you go months without rain, and you get all the bird droppings and stuff on the roof, which is where the water comes from, and then they catch it with the gutters in it and goes into the cisterns. But that's one of the problems they have with droughts is once the rain starts flowing again, it's the water's not clean. So they have a problem with sickness when that happens as well.
Yeah, when we would wash dishes, we had one sink with a bin of water straight out of the tap, and then for like rinsing dishes, we had another bucket of bleach water that everything would get bleached once, and then just let it air out. But for the kids, like John was saying, of course, we didn't drink the water. We drank bottled water and brushed our teeth with that. But they drink it, and their version of filtered water is taking a washcloth and putting it over the faucet, and that being the filter through which their drinking water goes through. So,
just another thing concerning the outhouse, which, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned about the smell of diesel. Apparently, the group that was there before us was really having a trouble with the smell of an outhouse, and to be able to kill some of that smell, they poured diesel down in there. So every time you went, you smelled diesel, and I was teasing after we got back that every time I smell diesel now, my mind goes to an outhouse. The other aspect, though, is that they had just built all that property there that we were on, and so we're kind of one of the newer groups that's been able to take advantage of that. The other outhouse that was been there for a long time sits out over the river. And that's another reason why they don't want to do baptism in the river, because around that particular area, that's where most of the folks put their outhouses, so it just kind of goes in there. So a lot of fun. Any other questions, and then we'll wrap up. Yes.
I was wondering if some of you would like to share what's one thing in your life here that will change because you went there. What's one thing in your life that will change here because of your going on the trip? Just some of you.
Well, I kind of touched on it already, but I think for me, personally, I believe that, and I heard a pastor say this on the radio after I got back, that if we can't witness to our own neighbors, then we shouldn't really be going. I mean, I think, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from going, but I just think that it's a conviction on my part of how I'm willing to travel thousands of miles to another country, but I won't talk to my own neighbor about Christ. And so I think that's what is changing for me.
For me, it would probably just be trying to get more involved in reaching out to the community and not letting just things like school or work distract me, or as an excuse to be like, oh, I'm busy with school, work, or doing things for me, but finding time and probably a group, so maybe some of my Christian friends, or a Bible study time where we can go out into the community and share the gospel, or just share God's love with them. Because the biggest thing we learned there was just making connections with them, and that was the basis. That's what Pastor Greg told us, was just making a relationship with them and building their trust in you, so that then when you do share the gospel with them, then they're like, you have that kind of relationship and they're willing to listen. It's not like you're going to a stranger and they're immediately on guard. So.
I think something that I learned, and this was from Pastor Greg, he had said, the whole reason why we did the VBS theme on spiritual warfare and putting on the full armor of God was because over in Guyana, there's actually a lot of demonic activity that we don't see the same form of here in the U.S. Over there, he said there's actually a lot of demon possession, and that's how Satan uses fear to get to them. But he said in the U.S. it doesn't look like that. Satan doesn't need to use fear necessarily and demonic possession. Not that it doesn't happen here, but here he says Satan gets us with materialism. And that's enough to distract us. So he's like, oh, they're good. They've got their, all their stuff to distract them. I don't need to use that specifically with this group. So that was just kind of a reminder that Pastor Dwayne always says, the enemy is extremely smart and very good at what he does. So, that was something that I took away from it.
Well, we wish we could stay here all morning, and we would. So if you have other questions and would like to, I'm sure at any time you catch these guys, they would love to share more stories with you. But we're actually going to close in prayer because in just a little bit we'll get ready for worship service. So let's bow our heads and let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for giving us life and breath today to worship you. God, we thank you for the opportunity that we've had this morning just to share what you have done in our lives and just this church that's such a blessing that stood behind us with their prayers and with their giving. Lord, you deserve all the glory. This is the reason why we're here this morning. It's the reason why we went on this trip, is to glorify you. And so I pray that each one here would be encouraged and reminded of the purpose you have for their lives, Lord, where they wake up each day knowing that you have a plan for their lives. God, I pray that you would just be high and lifted up here as we sing songs of worship and as we hear your word. Pray that you would challenge our hearts this morning. And we ask all this in your precious and holy name. Amen.